Hi there, this is John Wilkinson again from History Made Easier, and in this presentation I aim to explain the outcome of both the Vietming's war against the French and the Vietcong's war against America. And to do so, I'm going to use your course guide that helps us teachers plan our lessons, specifically the bit for paper 2 on what to cover for the practices of war and their impact on the outcome, with its 4 subsections: types of war, technological developments, the extent of the mobilization of human and economic resources, and the influence and/or involvement of foreign powers. So, beginning with types of war, we have civil wars. And that the American War was a civil war at the same time meant that Ho Chi Minh had more support from the Vietnamese people in the south as well as the north than Diem did. And that bolstered their resolve, their determination to win through, as well as helping the Vietcong guerrilla forces as they operated in the south. But it was also a war between states, a war for national independence from French imperialism and from American imperialism, imposing Diem on the people. But the Vietminh, Vietcong were on home territory and made it work for them. The French and the Americans didn't know how to fight their wars. It was, of course, also a guerrilla war. This was the way a peasant-based economy could beat a European imperial power and then America, the greatest economy in the world. Though they did also have a lot of help from the Soviet Union and the People's Republic of China. You need to think about how these things manifested themselves in the French and American wars to explain how the Vietminh, Vietcong won and the imperial powers lost. Then we move to technological developments and their impact on the outcome of the wars. Technology not only didn't help the French and the Americans, in the American case it proved a handicap, turning the Vietnamese people against them, and indeed the American people too. Refer to how the Viet Minh were even able to defeat the French at Dien Bien Phu, using their grit, their determination to man-haul their guns onto the mountains overlooking the French base, and the way in which America's search and destroy missions, their use of napalm and Agent Orange, turned their own people against the war, never mind the Vietnamese, and how their sustained bombing raids failed to break the will of the Vietnamese people to continue the fight. There's so much material for you to use. And there's the extent of the mobilization of human and economic resources. For the Vietnamese, these wars against the French and the Americans were total wars. Military personnel, production and supply all point to this. Go back to my presentation on whether the war was a total or limited war for the Vietnamese. I talk about a nation at arms, with virtually all their resources, including men, women and children, devoted to the war effort. The youth volunteers and the use of women on the Ho Chi Minh Trail as an example. Whereas for the French and the Americans, the war impacted on their economies enough for it to play a part in their giving up the fight, but they were not total wars for them. And of course we come to the influence or involvement of foreign powers. Imperialists against the people fighting for their independence from foreign interference. First off, when we come to link this to outcomes, Neither the French or the Americans understood the Vietnamese culture. Look at the way the French aggravilles and the Americans repeated the mistake with strategic hamlets. At how the Americans supported a leader in Diem who tried to suppress Buddhism. Neither did they understand the geography and how to fight in mountain, delta, jungle or paddy field. Whereas in the American war, the Soviet Union and China did enough to keep the Vietcong in the fight, wearing down America's will to continue. So, the involvement of foreign powers has plenty for you to write about, should that be the focus of a question. Now, having listened to this presentation, what you should really do is think about the extent each of these factors had on the outcome of either of the wars. Remember, if you have a to what extent question, with say a focus on foreign influence or involvement, you might well think the mobilization of Vietnamese human and economic resources was a bigger factor, or guerrilla warfare. The point I urge is that you think of where you stand on these things before you go into the exam hall. You don't want to be rushing into a judgment with the clock ticking in front of you. So, I hope this proves useful for you. Don't forget, I may have a tutorial slot available if you think you might benefit from that. And of course, I will be focusing on your needs. Just get your parents to get in touch with me at historymadeeasier@gmail.com and we'll see if we can sort something out. Prices can be negotiated according to what your parents can afford. I'm not in this to make a killing, I assure you. But I will need to have a slot available, of course. But anyway, let me thank you for listening and wish you the very best of luck with your studies. Cheers.